It's a very nice place. Okay. So Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. We have been talking about the topic of Moksha, Brahmanand, Premanand, and today we'll go deeper into some of the possibilities of divine love. And also what happens, right? We have spoken about what happens during God realization and what happens to our body, mind, intellect, all this stuff, right? We look at God realization, we are talking about serving God. So we'll get into the deeper topics around that and have a fascinating discussion that I look forward to, like always. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and we will get started by invoking the blessings of God and Guru so that our discussion is meaningful and we all can take something back home to mull upon, contemplate upon, to help our spiritual journey. So let me share my screen and we will get started with our topic of our discussion today. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay, we'll do our opening prayers and then we'll get started. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum. Okay, so Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. So let's continue on the topic that we have been discussing, and we will try to understand the God realization and and the deeper possibilities of attaining divine love, which we have already spoken about, that it goes much beyond moksha as well. Okay. And what happens basically, right? We are humans, we look at our body, we have a corporeal body, we have a bhav day and all that stuff. What happens to our mind, intellect, this body, cross body, all this stuff we'll talk about today. So let's move on, get started. We'll have picked up the same shloka, which talks about, the material abodes and then going to God's abode and no coming back. But like I said, the discussion that we are having actually not only looks at this aspect that Lord Krishna is talking about, but goes a little deeper, getting into the depths of bhakti taken in from Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and basically much more than just limited to what this shloka is talking about. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to recite it and then you're welcome to follow along. Abraham bhuvanalokaha punaravartino arjuna mamupetya tu kanteya punarjanma na vidyate. Okay, do we have some volunteers who want to recite?
Radhe Radhe Shyamji.
Radhe Radhe Shyamji. Radhe Radhe.
Brahma bhuvan loka punaravartino arjuna mamupetya tu kante punarjanma na vidyate. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice, Shyamji. Radhe Radhe. Okay.
Radhe Radhe Riyaji.
Radhe Radhe. Brahma bhuvana lokaha punaravartino arjuna mam upetya tu kaunteya punarjanma na vidyate.
Very nice, Radhe Radhe. Radhe. Okay, let's take up the remaining hands.
Radhe Radhe Sumeshji.
Radhe Radhe. Brahma bhuvana loka punaravartino arjuna मामुपेत्य तु कौन्तेय पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते राधे
Very
राधे
nice, Rameshi. Radhe Radhe. Okay, 3 more hands.
Radhe Radhe
Ra-
Anitaji.
Radhe Radhe. Brahma Bhuvana Punaravatinoర్జున Mamupetya tu Kaunteya Punarjanmana Vidyate. Thank you.
Wonderful. Very nice, Anita ji. Thank you. Okay, let's take the remaining hands.
Radhe Radhe Payal ji.
Radhe Radhe, Payal
राधे
ji.
राधे ब्रह्म भुवनालोकः पुनरावर्तिनो अर्जुन मामुपेत्य तु कौन्तेय पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते राधे राधे
Wonderful, Payal ji. Radhe Radhe. Okay, let's.
Radhe Radhe Dinesh ji.
Radhe Dinesh.
राधे ब्रह्म भुवनालोका पुनरावर्तिनोऽर्जुन मामुपेत्ये तु कौन्तेय पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते राधे राधे
Radhe Radhe, Dinesh ji. Very nice. Thank you. So let's get started. In this shloka, Lord Krishna is saying, chapter 8, verse 16, he's saying that in all the worlds of this material creation, up to the highest abode of Brahma, you will be subject to rebirth. O Arjun, but on attaining my abode, O son of Kunti, there is no further rebirth. And in Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Janm Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. This cycle, you are past that cycle. What is Janma Mrityu? We know birth and death. Jara is old age. Vyadhi is disease. No, none of us is immune from that. So, what Lord Krishna is saying is, on attaining my abode, you go beyond these 4 things. These are all basically something which is we are subject to because of our karmas, and we keep repeating here. Birth is painful. We have forgotten it, but it is painful. That's where most of our past memories get erased. Death is painful. We keep forgetting that. And then Jara, old age. Right? It's not fun to grow old because we keep on growing weak. Our body demands keep changing. And Vyadhi, disease is something that is waiting to catch us. We can increase our longevity, but nobody is immune to Vyadhi also. So these 4 things, if you want to get past that, God is saying you have to attain my abode. And in order to attain his abode is what we are trying to understand. That is the whole purpose of spirituality. Right? Now, if you're thinking, no, Jan Mrityu Jara Vyadhi is okay. The world is fine. We have some certain aspirations that we could not achieve in this life. We want to become good leaders. We want to become more articulate. We want to have a better life. All these things are good aspirations, but that is not God realization. And these are the things which make us repeat in this world, because God, like an indulgent father, says, all right, if you think this is something you wanted to crave for, you wanted to achieve in some other life, be my guest. I'll give you another opportunity. You have to work hard for these, but then it will not take you beyond the mic world, so to say. And the possibilities of attainment in this material world are immense. Right? Yesterday we were talking about 8.4 million species, but within those species, how many combinations are possible? Right? Varieties could be there. I mean, if you look at Maya itself, it is infinite. We have 3 primary colors, red, blue, green. Within that, what are the possibilities of the combinations that are possible? Infinite. Can we say we can box the colors into certain quantity just because they are born out of those 3? No, infinite combinations are possible. Similarly, how many suras are there? 7. How many combinations are possible? Infinite. How many gunas are there? 3. How many combinations are possible? Infinite. So when material world itself is so immense, infinite, right? We were talking about yesterday, I think Sandhya brought up that question, 8.4 million species, that it can actually result in infinite souls, even those 8.4 million species combination itself. But it's a different matter that, that is a frame of reference for us. We don't know how many souls possibilities are there in other Brahmans. And God has an ability to even Anyways, I'll not get into that. It may rake up a controversy here. But the point here is that material world itself is infinite. Within finite elements, it can create infinite combinations. And then spiritual world, which is 3/4, has immense possibilities. And we'll try to scratch the surface around the divine love aspect of it itself today. And then what happens to our body? When you talk about divine love, we experience this world. Ego is an interface between our soul and the body or this external world. What happens to that? Do we go as it is, as we are, to God? And then what happens to this body? We are made up of Panchatattva, 5 elements. What kind of body do we have if we have to serve God? We can't serve God through our soul. It has to be something more than that, right? And there's a reason God has given us a form. That interface continues, the mind, intellect. What happens to mind and intellect at that point when we surrender? What happened to our eyes? Do we still have eyes? Do we still have a body? We'll talk a little bit about that. So let's move on and have a quick recap from what we discussed yesterday. And today we are going to talk about the possibilities of divine love. As you can see, there are immense possibilities. God doesn't say this is it. Bhakti, in the path of devotion, there is no Purnima. It's not like a waxing moon that one day you said, all right, now I've reached the finite end of Bhakti and there's nothing more to attain. Not possible. I told you the example of material world. There also the things are infinite from those 3 primary colors and 7 suras that we have. We can find infinite combinations out of it. And material world, if it can be infinite, spiritual world, we can only imagine, what are the possibilities it opens up. Yesterday, we spoke about this whole, the landscape of this material world and the spiritual world, which is 3/4, which is much more immense, which we don't have any clue of it as yet. And then the various combination possibilities that are possible for us to keep rotating or doing this 8.4 million tourism in our Brahmand. Okay. Lower planets that have to be avoided. Okay, and then middle planet is where we are. Middle planet, upper planets, where we do a lot of sattvic deeds. That's where we go. If we do a lot of tamasic deeds, we come to lower planets. We do a lot of rajasic deeds, where we want to enjoy and be a mixed bag of good and bad. Then we come to Mrityuloka. So the very argument when we present in our minds or otherwise that why do good things happen to bad people itself, we have to look at it in perspective. If we're truly good, we would have been in higher planets, right? Possibly in some other yuga. If we were truly bad, we would have been in hellish abodes. Though we are not so good, maybe, mixture of good and bad. That is why we are in Mrityuloka. Okay. And that is why we are repeating here. Now let's move on and talk about, we spoke about this concept as well, which one is a complete realization. I'll do a quick recap without getting, so enjoyers of God's material energy, if we get the perfect life like that, sure, by God's grace, we can get that. That doesn't mean God has graced us enough to become God realized. Fine, that life is there, but then it is meant for us to truly progress towards God, not to simply sit back and enjoy this material life alone, even if it's a perfect life. That's not the, maybe one of the drops may get picked in one of our lives, perfect prarabdha, where things are more supportive than relative to some other lifetime. But that still doesn't mean that is taking us closer to God, unless we exert our free will to make progress towards that. Okay. And in some cases, material reversals actually are beneficial for us. It gives us a reason for us to turn our back towards material world and more towards the spiritual world. If we had a comfortable life here, you would absolutely not think about God. There is no reason for you to even think about God. You are happy here. See, even though we are uncomfortable here, we still don't turn our face towards God. We still try to find happiness in material things only. Where is the next party I can go to? Which is the next celebration I can be part of? Which is the next good friend or relationship I can get into? We still seek that despite all the reversals that we have faced and the fact that scriptures are telling us. Just imagine if things were supportive around you. Everything is falling into place that you wanted, starting with the silver spoon in your mouth and then perfect relationships and everything. Then you would have absolutely no incentive to turn your back to, towards my world and even question why am I here, or realize your true potential as becoming closer to God. and the purpose of this creation would be defeated. Maya's job is not to give you that. Okay. So we spoke about this is definitely not God realization that we generally all of us crave for, right? Perfect life in this world, fine. It's a good aspiration as long as you're utilizing it to get closer to God. But if you're not, just want to enjoy life, what a waste. Okay, that's what scriptures tell us. Now, this is one. Then enjoys in celestial abode is also not something that one should crave for because it is temporary, not lasting. Then we spoke about going past Maya, birth and death cycle, the liberation aspect as well. We said that is also good. You are realizing God, but only partially, not in its entirety until you have reached a stage where you are serving God. Okay, where you get the inheritance of divine love. That is the complete realization of God. I'll add another dynamic to it today. We spoke about, the first two being, this is called bhukti, material enjoyments. This is called mukti, liberation. Third one is called divine love, prem sudha. Now, I'll add another aspect to it. Think about it carefully. First one is pretty intuitive. Second one might be a surprise for a lot of you. And the third one, of course, is something that we will get deeper into today. Now, the first two are selfish desires. Okay, if I tell you moksha, is it a selfish desire? Yes, of course, because you are seeking it for yourself, dukh nivritti. You said, God, my temperature, that I'm suffering from, give me a pill so that my temperature is over. God said, all right, I'll give you that. But you are not truly have a desire to serve God. Okay, so it is still not selfless. Divine love you get when you become selfless. You want to serve God to the best of your ability. This is the only when you divine love you get only when you become selfless. Liberation, mukti is also selfish desire. Okay, you can note it down. It's a very important principle. Mukti is it's a spiritual desire. It's a high level of desire, high quality of desire, but it is still selfish. It is still tainted with selfishness. Only when you strive to serve God, that's when you become selfless, and that's when you get divine love. You become entitled or eligible for divine love. It's completely selfless. Narad Bhakti Darshan says, one sutra, TSS, Tat Sukh Sukhitvam, where your happiness is in the happiness of the beloved. That is the concept. And this is something which doesn't come intuitively to us. See, even when the guests come to our home, you want to feed them to death. Why are you not eating? Why are you not eating? Why are you not eating? Right? Now, even when Swamiji comes, people, out of their love, are feeding him puris, big puris they'll bring, and Swamiji have rasgulla, this. Now, are we doing it for their happiness or are we doing it for our happiness? We have to understand that we are doing it for our happiness. And if somebody truly cares about others, they have to put themselves in what will please them. That is that is the litmus test for true love. Are you doing it for your own sake, for your own happiness, or are you doing it for somebody else's happiness? This is a simple question, and that is something which is not very intuitive for us. We will disguise our own selfishness as something that we are doing for others because we don't know that. It goes much deep. And the spirituality, when you come in contact with a true saint, they will work on that selfishness aspect of it, and more of selflessness will start coming in, which is a huge thing, right? You start making spiritual progress. Even when we and they say the selfless relationship in this world is not possible, material world. The closest relationship that comes to selfless love is the umbilical cord relationship between a child and a mother, not even within a child and a father. That is the closest one that comes, but not completely devoid of selfishness as well. Okay, if you think deeply about it. So that is how it goes. But now let's move on and talk about the selfless love. The divine love, basically. I'll start off by posing this quick question: which of the following forms would you prefer to meet the God? Right, I've posed it in the past as well. I'll do it again. Formless light in his awesome cosmic form, or it's in his endearing form, right? That determines the very fundamentals of your devotion. Okay, this would also determine where you end up going if you perfect your devotion. Okay, now if you perfect it as a formless light, you'll go to Birja River, where the Jivan Mukt Gyanis, they lie down in perpetual bliss. If you worship him as an king in awe and reverence, You could go to, depending upon your Ishtadev, you can meet him in that form. Like, for example, if you worship God as Narayan on his Vishnu form, you will go to Vaikunt, because that's how you have visualized God when you have done your practice. And if you do it in his endearing form, then we will talk about what are the possibilities here, right? Depending, again, it's not like one is, the rasas will vary. All our God realizations we have spoken about, but then the rasas, it's like bitter butter, better butter, better butter, and those possibilities, they keep on increasing there, right? Now, sugar is sugar. Still, the mishri has a different taste, and good has a jaggery has a different taste, the molasses has a different taste, and sugar in raw form. Similarly, in bhakti also, the rasas, they keep on increasing, and God has an ability to give you finer, more subtle, more finer taste, and there is no end to that. Okay, and that is what we are going to talk about today: the rasas, the different rasas that are possible. Now, if you do formless light, Birja River is where you'll go. You guys merge with God. Na rahega baans, na bajegi bansuri. Okay, you are a done deal at that point. You can enjoy that bliss perpetually, and there's no opportunity to be in association of God or to enjoy his personal form or to serve him at that point. And then let's talk with the personal form of God, the different rasas that are possible. We have spoken about this topic. We'll do a quick recap of it today. Okay. Now, the bhav, this is God, right? And there is a possibility of having proximity to God, how close you want to get to his form. Okay, and those are the ones we'll talk about. To start off with, this is the most distant one, where you have associated with the form, but in his Narayan official form. This is called, as you can see, this is called, the starting one is called, and then you can become closer. This is the first one, is basically the Sankhya Bhav or the Shantabhav, where you worship God as your king with awe and reverence. The more closer one is Dasya Bhav. We'll talk a little bit more about it, which is closer to God. You get a little more association with God as his servant. The more closer is called Vatsalya Bhav. As you see, the distance has started shrinking now. Sakha Bhav, sorry. And Sakha Bhav is as a friend. The more closer than that is Vatsalya Bhav. And the closest one is called Madhurya Bhav. These are the different bhavs in which you can make God your own. There's a possibility of making God your own is pretty awesome. And God, who is so big and we are so small, one who is the proprietor or the who's in charge of this entire creation, I'm saying I'm going to build a personal connect with him. That itself is a mind-blowing possibility. And God said that is possible. He's actually given us that freedom to do that. We have to just accept that fact and move on, right? That's where the depths of bhakti, you get it into Bhagavatam, and when you go into some deeper scriptures, Bhagavad Gita just introduces this concept. Now, let's look at it, the bhavs, so that for the participants who might be exposed to this concept for the first time, I'll talk a little bit about it. As you look at it, the intimacy with God is increasing in each bhav, right? It's like a step-by-step process. The first one is the Shant Bhav, where you do a reverence to king as a subject-object relationship as a king. And for example, Ram Bhagwan, when he's in Ayodhya and we are his praja. Now we just revere God as our king, right? How big he is and how small I am. And it is from a distance. You can fold hand and worship God as your king. Even in Narayana avatar, we can worship him as our king, as our master. That is the relationship that is established when you look upon him as king, something much bigger, larger than life, where he is and where we are, kind of a relationship. That is called Shanta Bhav. Some people prefer that, and that comes naturally to them. God is saying you keep deepening that. We don't know which bhav will come naturally to us unless we experiment that, right? And whichever comes, you start deepening it. I'll tell you the possibilities in each bhav, and then it's our personal journey at that point. So Shanta Bhav is the one that you practice, where you look upon God as your king. The second one is Dasya Bhav. Dasya Bhav is now the intimacy has increased a little bit more. Now it's not just looking upon him as your king from a distance in a far-off palace. Now you have an ability to enter his personal room. Dasya is a servant. Servant can get into the room of his master. And he also gets the privilege to touch his feet. A normal praja person will not get it. But if you are his personal servant, then you get a privilege to touch his feet, press his feet, do things for him. And God will say, yes, I accept that. Now, Dasibhav is kathin, right? It has to follow a lot of protocols. Hanumanji is a parikashtha of Dasibhav. Okay. Lakshmanji was a parikashtha, a epitome of Dasibhav. In fact, when he was walking with Ram and Sita in the forest, he would not even put step where both of them had put their steps. Okay, it's like that Dasibhav Maryada is to put his head where his Swami's feet have fallen. They cannot put their step there, so they follow that protocol to the letter. Bharat, he would not sleep on the floor. Why? Because Ram was sleeping on the floor in the forest. He dug a pit. He said, how can I sleep on the floor and be equal to my master where he's sleeping on the floor? So he dug a pit and he used to sleep there. So Dasibhav, it is kathin, but people have practiced it. You can perfect your devotion in Dasibhav as well. So Hanumanji, Lakshman are some of the examples of Dasibhav, how they serve Lord in Dasibhav. But the point is, they enjoy more freedom or personal connection with God than, and if you're serving him from a distance, from afar in Shantabhav. Then comes Sakha Bhav. Now Das cannot all of a sudden put his arm around his, and make him a friend. Sakha has that additional freedom. You see, you're now becoming more closer. So like Sakha, Madhumangal and Dhansukh, Mansukh, Sudama, Arjun, they had the freedom to put their arm around God. Because God says, you're my friend. So even when we go to some friend's place, he may be an IAS or a commissioner or a DC or a judge. But if you are in school friend, you are saying, all right, come on, man, let's do this and that, do that. So you get more freedom as a friend than as a servant or as a subject-object relationship. So the proximity is increased in Sakha Bhav. So God said, yes, you want to accept me as a friend, I am open for that. You can perfect your devotion as a friend also. Okay, if that comes naturally to you, sure. In fact, all the Sakha and Sakhis, Gopas and Gopis, some of them, they some of the Jivatmas who had perfected, who were on the tipping point of perfecting their Sakha Bhav for God, they get a chance during their avatar kal. When Krishna descended, some of them got a chance to become his friends at that point and perfect their devotion and then finally go to his abode. So you may get a chance in God's Leelas if you're on the tipping point of perfecting any of these bhavs, and he may give you an opportunity. Jivatmas get this opportunity during the avatar kal and then go to his abode just before going to his abode. Okay, kind of a simulation to perfect their devotion. So now the point is, as a friend, you get more closer. Even in material world, we see, right? Friends have more privileges. No matter who you are, and friend will come and do whatever they take more liberties. Now, more than friend is Vatsalya, parents. Parents, now we know that we did reveal certain secrets to our parents. I mean, now it's reversing in today's generation where they do it more with their friends than their parents. But parents are more intimate than friends also, right? There are some deeper secrets. There are certain emotional things that you depend upon your parents on that you don't take liberties even from your friends. Similar to that, Vatsalya Bhav gives you more freedom with God. What kind of freedom? Brahmaji once saw that this Purna Purushottam Brahma, whom people, big sages and all, they try to meditate upon him, and he does not care to enter their samadhis. They are running after him, and he's not catchable in their samadhis or otherwise. And this Brahma, Yashoda Maiya gets the privilege to hold him closely to her chest and sleep with him every day and treat him like a baby, or to scare the wits out of him using a stick, or to tie him up. How is it possible? That is possible because of Vatsalya Bhav. Because Vatsalya Bhav, now you can go beyond friend. Friend will not come and start slapping you or start giving you emotional, what do you call that? We take that emotional freedom, right? Emotional blackmail and stuff like that. A mother and father can do that. So they enjoy more privileges now. So Vatsalya Bhav is more intimate than Sakhya Bhav. And there are people who like to worship God as Laddu Gopal, my little baby, or you can become parents to them, or you can treat him like a parent as well. Either way, both are Vatsalya Bhav, and God gives you that freedom as well. He said, okay, if you want to come, even more closer. And even more closer than Vatsalya Bhav is called Madhurya Bhav. Now, Madhurya Bhav is like no barriers at all, right? It's like you're beloved. So if you've fallen in love, you've had a sweetheart in life, right? You know how much freedom we enjoy with them, with spouse or otherwise. And the good part about that is you have an ability to get down into any of the bhavs when you exercise Madhurya Bhav towards God. When you consider him as your beloved, nobody stops you from treating God like your child, or as your friend, or as your king, or as your master. All bhavs are automatically covered in that. You can switch hats, but from a Sakhya bhav or a Dasya bhav, you cannot switch to Madhurya bhav, right? The upside is not possible because you've already followed a certain thing in your mind. But from Madhurya bhav, if you are brave enough to practice that, then all other bhavs are automatically covered. It gives you complete flexibility, freedom to practice any other bhav. Okay, so that becomes the highest bhav, where the love for God dominates as your beloved. Tat sukh sukhitvam. Now, within Madhurya Bhav also there are possibilities. You could be practicing it for your own sake, or you could be practicing for his sake and your own sake, or you could be practicing only for his sake. So there are possibilities and gradations within Madhurya Bhav as well. But the key point here to understand is Madhurya Bhav is the closest one that takes you to God, right? Now you don't have any formalities of that being a king, or that being a master, or that being a friend. I can do this much, but beyond a point, I'll draw a line even with my friend, or being a parent, right? Like, for example, as a parent also, there is in all the other bhavs, there is a sense of entitlement. And Madhurya Bhav, there is no sense of entitlement. And there may be in Madhurya Bhav as well, we'll talk about that. But then typically that sense of entitlement is also shrinking. As a mother, I'm telling you. As a father, I'm telling you. I'm your father, I'm your friend, I'm that. In Madhurya Bhav, that sense of entitlement, you simply love. Okay. Now, there are gradations in that as well. We'll talk about it. But that it is not motivated by a sense of entitlement in Madhurya Bhav. And that is one of the reasons in Maharashtra, Yashoda Maiya also did not get a entry there. It was only for Gopis, and that too, the Gopis who had perfected selfless love. So this is the key point. Now, there is no end to it. Now, within Madhurya Bhav, let's talk about it, go a little more deeper into this concept. As you see, the Bhav is getting deeper, the intimacy is also increasing with God. Okay, now it is said that tere ras ka laga chaska jisko lagta vaikunt bhi fika usko. So this basically differentiates between Raganuga Bhakti and Vaidhi Bhakti. Now, people who get into purely love-based relationship with God, for them even Vaikunt is insipid. Now, Vaikunt is not a normal thing, right? People say Vaikunt is the aim. Then the true devotees who start getting into the deeper rasas, they say even Vaikunt seems insipid. We are talking about very high principles. We are saying moksha is fine. Vaikunt is also fine. We want to go even further. Okay, these are like top Ivy League of devotion. More than Ivy League of devotion is what we're going to talk about. Yes, Prakash, you had a question?
Yeah, what about the feelings like anger and fear on God? Like, I heard that, like, the Karna or Ravan, they have feelings of, anger on, on the God, and always they want to kill him, right? And then during that process, they are always thinking about him, and then eventually they attain the God realization, right?
True.
So, but is there a place for that kind of feelings here, or is this that?
True.
How do we put this in perspective here? Yeah.
You're right. So first of all is feeling about God, whether you think about God with a sentiment of love, or you think about God with a sentiment of hate. Okay, it will do its job, because you're thinking about something pure, right? It's like paras money. Whether you throw something accidentally or you throw something intentionally, it will turn it into gold. So similarly, if you think about God, whether through rag or dvesh. But if the condition is nirantarta, then it will still do its effect. Having said that, they don't get the higher rasas that we are going to, because it's not selfless love. Okay. Now, in maybe one of the sessions, I'll talk about different kind of muktis, sayujya, salokya, samipya, right? So they get those kind of muktis where they are deprived of some of the higher blissas because it's not selfless love. So yeah, they do get that. In fact, when God kills somebody, they do get there, but it is not those higher rasas that we're going to talk about because it was not motivated by selfless love. Yeah, a great question around that. So let's move on. So mokshas are also of different type, like I said, right? Sayujya, salokya, samipya, and there's one more. So they are still in moksha stage. And God, in fact, it is not considered as a top prize of God when God, basically they go and their soul just merges with God. So they've given him moksha. They've still not given him his topmost prize God, okay? Because their motivation for devotion was not driven by the TSS, Tat Sukh Sukhitvam principle. Yes, Rahul, you wanted to add something?
Radhe Radhe, there is a question in the chat from Ganapriya ji, and she wants to ask that is the Gopi Bhav the Madhurya Bhakti, and if we have
Yes, I'm getting into that.
Any saints or gurus performing Madhurya Bhav. Yeah.
Sure, I'll get into that. So yes, Gopi Bhav, I'm getting into that. So we spoke about Madhurya Bhav, right, till this point, which has the, now here, the Brajaras starts from, if you look at it from Dasya Bhav onwards, that is called Brajaras. From Dasya Bhav onwards, the Brajaras starts because now you have proximity of God. Let's get into more deeper into this principle. Okay, so first of all, we looked at God can give you two possibilities, right? Aishwarya and Madhurya. So it's a quick one. Like in Aishwarya, Vishnu has 100% Aishwarya, Madhurya is 0. Vishnu will not do Madhurya to you. In fact, in Maharaj, he came in his four-armed form in front of Gopis, and Gopi said, what is this jokery going on? Okay. And then when Radhaji came, his two hands automatically evaporated because he cannot maintain his Aishwarya in front of Radharani. So in Vishnu is his official form where 100% official Aishwarya, no 0% Madhurya. In Dwarka, Krishna, when he's Dwarkadhish, 80% Aishwarya is there, 20% Madhurya Bhav is there. When he's Mathura, more proximity, 50-50, it's 50-50. But in Braj Vandavan, it's 100% Madhurya. No Aishwarya is allowed there. And one day of Brahma, Krishna comes in himself like a sun. Like 5,000 years, that avatar happened. Like a sun rises, avatar continues across Brahmands. One day of Brahma, Krishna comes himself from Golok Vrindavan. Otherwise, he comes through a Mahavir, the Vishnu avatar, right? They say Rama is Vishnu. He comes through his planetary expansion avatar, but not his Poon avatar, from Golok Vrindavan. But one day he comes. So this Aishwarya, if you look at it, all are Krishna only, but the Madhurya or the sweetness is increasing. And depending upon devotee, what kind of ras they want, you can worship it in that form. Now, Gopi Bhav, you spoke about a very good question. Now let's talk about it. When we spoke about divine love, we said Brahmanand and Premanand are the possibilities. Brahmanand is the moksha aspect we spoke about. Let's talk about Premanand. It goes from Aishwarya to Madhurya, Shant, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya. Now, Madhurya Bhav, which Gopis do, falls into three categories. Sadharani Rati, Samanjasya Rati, and Samartha Rati. Okay. What is the difference between two? Sadharani Rati is 0% for themselves. I love Krishna because I get pleasure from Krishna. Great aspiration to have, but not yet Tat Sukh Sukhitvam. Okay. So see, these are the possibilities after God realization. Don't assume they are ordinary souls. I'll talk about what happens. These are all God realized. Already you are God realized state. But within that, how you're practicing your devotion or how you have realized God. Sadharani Rati is all about myself and for my sake. Right? Kubja, for example, she loved Krishna for her own sake. So she becomes a Sadharani Rati Gopi. Samanjasya Rati is 50-50. Okay, for my sake also, Krishna's sake also. So his queens in Dwarka, Rukmini, right, on what was Satyabhama and all, they fell into that category, 50-50 with Krishna. The highest are Samartharati, which are gopis. It's like completely for Krishna. There's not even a trace of selfishness for themselves, right? Gopi Geet Swamiji explained it so beautifully. the level of their devotion, how high it goes. The queens still follow certain protocols that he's my husband, and Krishna, we cannot do this. If we do this, we will go to Narak and all that stuff. I mean, not Narak, they can't go to Narak, but they consider, that protocols and decorum of being queens is maintained. Gopis are like everything for Krishna. We don't care where we go in Leela. We just care for Krishna's happiness. Okay. So that is Samartharati, which is the highest level of Gopis. Now, what happens when you get into these categories? Let's look at the rasas also. So Dwarkaras we saw. In Madhure, you get Dwarkaras, where you could be doing Chintan of God in his Aishwarya form. Closer to that is Mathura Ras we saw. Closer to that is Braj and Vrindavan. Within Braj also, the Vrindavan Ras is highest. Okay. And then within that, the Kunjaras, then Nikunjaras and Nibhritur Nikunjaras. For a Jivatma, the Kunjaras is reserved. Maximum a Jivatma can go. Ashtasakhis can go up to Nikunjaras, and then Radha Krishna, Nibrit Nikunj is only reserved for Radharani. Jivatma cannot go there. Now, the few drops of Kunjaras, they have been imparted in this material world when the Tulsi Das, Kabir Das, these big Surdas, the big saints come, and that itself is so intoxicating. Right? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, few drops were given to the Jivatmas at that point. But that is the possibility for a Jivatma. The maximum Jivatma can reach is still Kunjaras. See, these are not ordinary things we are talking about. Even if you get to Sadharani, any of this is pretty awesome, right? It's like going past Maya. But these are the deeper secrets which only Maharajji can tell. Okay, Swamiji can explain. They're very deep secrets. And then Kunjaras, not ordinary, nobody can reach there unless you've gotten a guru of that caliber. Okay, they can take you to the Kunjaras aspect of it, which is the cream of all the rasas within Vrindavan Ras, which is the cream of Brajaras, and Brajaras is like the topmost ras that you can enjoy when you start building a relationship with God. Yes, Sandhya, you had a question?
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. So the Ashtasakhis, they are not Jeev.
They are not Jeev. So I'm glad you asked this question. Let me show you Ashtasakhis since you jumped. Okay, they are Swanch of God. Ashtamahasakis are Lalita, Vishakha, right? Each one of is an expert in knowing what will provide bliss to God. And they get personal service of God. Okay, so that Nikunjaras is only reserved for them. These are the Ashtasakis. Okay, that you're talking about. And the rasas that I spoke about, let me talk about these as well so that it's a little more clear. The Kunjaras I spoke about, right? It is basically the sakhas, the cowherd friends of Sri Krishna. They can serve and enjoy the pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna. Nikunjaras, Ashtamahasakhi that we saw, Jivatmas cannot get there, and Nikunjaras is only reserved for Radha Krishna. Okay, there are deeper topics. I mean, we are talking because we have to, but the point here being that Brajras is lene wala bada bhola bhala, Braj ke rasiko mein shamil nahi hai. Brajras is all about selfless love. When we perfect that, that's only when we get an entitlement for them. And that is why developing that, deepening that is the focus of Maharajji's, Swamiji's teachings throughout. If you have looked at that, it's like it's in the happiness of God is what we need to look for. And it starts with serving Guru, right? Where your happiness lies, my happiness. And how do you simulate that? We are not used to this concept, right? The selfless aspect starts building when you start thinking of the happiness of God. And Karma Yoga is a great way to start practicing it, simulating it in our 8-hour workday, 8 to 10-hour workday, whatever it is. It's a good stepping stone to start building those sanskars. I'm doing it for your pleasure. Seva is a great way to start building those sanskars because the true realization of God is becoming his Nityadas, right? So these are all stepping stones to get to this state. Now you say, what happens to the body, right? That's a question I've not tackled as yet. So let's look at it. This is our body. This is our soul, right? The interface of our soul with the world is through this body, through which we perceive and all that stuff. And then we have a mind intellect complex, right? And this is our gross existence, gross body, mind, and senses. What happens with God realization? God realization, what happens is you get an upgrade. What kind of an upgrade? You will get divine body, mind, and senses. Okay. it becomes divine. Like Krishna gave divine vision to Arjun so that he could see him. Now you have become Satchidanand at that point. You are still having a body, you are still a soul, but you have gotten an upgrade at that point. It's not an ordinary body made up of Pancha Mahabhut at that point, because that is how you serve. Even Ashtamahasakhis, if you look at it, they have a form. Each one has a unique ability. Maybe one of the sessions I can talk about Ashtamahasakhis, what kind of abilities that they have, because they know how perfectly to please God. Okay. But you get an upgrade. Okay. It's like a phone upgrade we do. We switch from a dumb phone to a smartphone. So we become extra smart at that point because we have gotten divine body, mind, and senses. It's no longer made up of Panchamahabhut. It's no longer obliged to come back to the material world, and it can serve God and be in perpetual, ever increasing bliss at that point in perfect knowledge. Gopis, although they are in love, it's not that they have no knowledge. The Gopis, some of the Gopis were Vedic Rishas themselves. The Vedas, they are written, Rishas, they also have a personal form. Yamuna has a personal form, Ganga has a personal form. Similarly, Vedic Rishas also had a personal form. So when we were having a discussion with Uddhav, he said, what knowledge are you talking about? We are knowledge personified ourselves. You are teaching us knowledge. But they said the samaj ki had hai gyan, gyan ki had hai samaj, and samaj ki had hai prem. That means the peak of knowledge is wisdom, and peak of wisdom is love for God. And there's nothing beyond love for God. And that is the whole purpose of human life. How closer we can get to God and inculcate the sanskars of deepening our love for God. If we can learn to love God, everything is there. It is the ultimate wealth one can acquire. Right? Everybody has, let's say somebody has all the opulence in this world, but they don't have a drop of love for God on one side. And the other side, you have a person who is poor, but he has developed a drop of love for God. That is called the true wealth. Right? There's a bhajan in which say, "Ye जीवन क्या जीवन जिसमें जीवन धन से प्यार न हो." So जीवन धन, true wealth in this human life is developing love for God. The more you have, the more rich you are, spiritually rich you are, and that is what ultimately counts. And this is something that you get, the divine love of God and all that stuff that you're talking about. I said, right, what happens when you get divine love of God? You become divine, first of all. There's no difference between you and God. Right? You become Yogamaya Yukt. You have a divine body, divine mind, divine senses, and at that point you are a done deal. Then you can pick up assignments based on God's behest. May come out as a saint, may come and do some leelas, right? And then, or may come as part of his avatar, or may just choose to enjoy, have a cup of coffee in Golok itself. Okay, do nothing after that. You are a done deal. All choices are available, is what our scriptures are telling us, right? But you continue to serve God, because in serving is where you realize your true potential as a soul, and you get the best, ultimate, the topmost bliss of God. And God is your servant at that point. God is serving you at that point. Right? So this is what our, the little bit of theory around what I have understood from Swamiji and Maharajji have tried to put it in here. It just opens up the possibilities of how we want to do our devotion, how we deepen our root dhyan, and look out for opportunities, how we deepen our love for God. But then that actually enables us to gain eligibility for the topmost prize of God. Okay, goes much beyond moksha and goes much beyond even the bhav, the possibilities within bhavs as well. If we have to go, why to limit ourselves as treating God as a king only or as a friend only? Why not go for the topmost prizes? What Maharaj used to say. But again, all of these are very, very high topics. Whatever bhav we feel comfortable in, we have to deepen it. In fact, even in Dasya Bhav, it is said in the parikashtha or the depths of Dasya Bhav, master and das, they both forget who's serving whom, basically. Hanumanji is sitting on top of Ram's head, Ram is sitting on, it's like everything melts. So they are very, very deep bhavs. It's not like one is higher than the other. They are all equal. You choose the one that comes more comfortably to you based on your own spiritual practice, because they are like the topmost prizes of God. Okay, all right. Now we can open it up for announcements and any discussion that anybody wanted to have.
Radhe Radhe Prakashji.
Radhe,
Radhe,
Prakash.
I have two questions, Nitinji. The first one is
Yeah.
about the three ratis you mentioned in the Premanand.
Mhm.
So Premanand itself is a selfless love, right? And then Sadharani Rati, you mentioned it's a selfish desire, right? So how will that, that's conflicting for me. That's my first question. And then second
No, so
question.
yeah, Premanand is not something completely that you would get if you have become selfless. Even if you have done bhakti with a selfish interest, you can still get Premanand. God is not limiting it. But within Premanand, the other categories that I spoke about, right? Kunj, Ras, that we spoke about, that is determined by how selfless you have been. Like, for example, if you simply do sadhana, right? There were gopis who would worship Krishna or look upon Krishna as their beloved, but only for their own happiness sake. Kubja, for example, they will also get God. God is not saying only when you become selfless will I give you that. But yeah, they will be bereft of Kunjaras in that case. They will be bereft of the highest possible thing that God can give at that point. They will still get the ras, but not at the level that a selfless gopi would get. Okay, so in order to get Premanand, it's not that selflessness. Maharaj keeps on talking about, he said, go for the topmost prize, even within Premanand. Why to limit yourself to Sadharani Rati? So they say if you do only sadhana, you will have Kubja Sanskar, you will probably become Sadharani Rati Gopi. But when you do Seva, then you will get into Samartha Rati.
Okay, thank you. So second question is about the bhavs, the 5 bhavs that you mentioned. So obviously, we want to aim for Madhurya bhav, but it's just a kind of dumb question for me. So we are like, naturally inclined to love the opposite gender, right?
Yes, very true question.
So we being males and then Krishna is being male, so we don't get that kind of Madhurya bhav, right?
I know.
So how do we deal with that?
I know, it's a very valid question, and that's why I took a session that as females, they have an advantage.
Yes,
because it will come very
exactly.
naturally. I get that part. But yeah, I mean, the souls are not gender. I don't know. It comes basically.
I know.
There used to be, I think, Swamiji gives an example of one of the saints. He used to do that Madhurya Bhav, but it will come in a deeper devotion. It will not come naturally. I know that. It's a lot of practices needed at that point where you are actually first situated at the level of soul. You understand it is gender agnostic. And then thinking Krishna is the pati of even our pati. He's a Jagat pati. So I know it's difficult, but maybe some training is needed. And then when we start getting that, maybe, I don't know. I mean, of course, it has to be practiced. And people have done that. In fact, I'll get that example. I forgot that saint. He practiced it to an extent, and he actually could simulate it. Swamiji gives an example. I'll try to get that. But yes, it's a very valid point. That's why females have an advantage for sure. Okay.
So in that case, like, can we
advantage?
Can we replace Krishna with Radha?
No.
So
in fact, this is a very valid question. In fact, this question was asked to Swamiji, and he said, "Can we do bhakti of Radha and Madhurya Bhav?" He said, for Radha, it's actually your spiritual mother, basically, for Radha. Swamiji has answered that question. We asked that question as a mother. In fact, even the Sakhi Bhav, they said either as that or as a Sakhi Bhav, where you are helping Radha, basically. To meet Krishna or helping her like Ashtasakhis do. So Sakhi Bhav and that, this is what Swamiji has answered. That is the Bhav we will practice. I know these are deeper questions, maybe we can ask him more. But yes, in that sense, Swamiji has answered that question as well. Very clearly.
Thank you so much.
Sakhi Bhav, like Ashtama Sakhi, where they actually help Radha to increase the, meet Krishna and practice it that way. For material mind, it doesn't make sense. Krishna is mine. Why should I help somebody else? And kind of a deal. Maybe deeper concepts as we get deeper in our devotion, these things will start clicking and making more sense to us. But either Sakhi Bhav or as a maternal mother, that is how we practice it. Okay, any announcements we want to make quickly? And then I know we have 5 more minutes before Swamiji's lecture start. So let's make the announcements, a couple of them. Let's put the link for enrolling for the Antakshari and the interactive activity that we are going to have on Maharaj Jagat Gurutam Divas, that is coming on Jan 14th and 15th. So this is the key announcement. Please do enroll for the Antakshari event that is going to happen. It's going to be a fun event. And you can test your knowledge, how well you have understood some of the bhajans in both letter and spirit, and how quickly you can recollect it. And also the interactive segment about Maharajji on his life. And you'll get to know a lot of interesting facts as well. So do sign up for that. I think let's post the sign up link. That was one announcement I wanted to make on my end.
Yeah, apart from the Jagat Guruttam Divas, then for the New Year Eve celebration and New Year celebration, you can join virtually from the comfort of your home, or you can visit Radha Krishna temple on December 31st. The celebration start at 10 p.m. CST. And then on January 1st, which is Bhakti Divas as well, the celebration start, I think, at 10:30 a.m. So you can try to join there. And there is one more comment from Lisa ji, that amazing knowledge always, so much clarity, very fulfilling session. Thank you so much, Nitin ji. God bless. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Lisa ji. The pleasure is entirely mine. Like I say, it's all Swamiji's knowledge, and I get it's my privilege to be able to present it back to you as best as I possibly can. So thank you for that.
There is one more comment
right.
from Sai Ramji. Can we go to one slide before that? He was having some confusion in that. Yeah.
Sure, I can. This one?
Yes, I think he was not able to understand this 100%, 20% completely.
Okay, so basically what I'm saying is that Krishna in his Krishna Golok Vrindavan form is basically complete Madhurya, no Aishwarya. He wants to be the boy next door. And in his official form in Mathura, he has to don his crown and become a king and do certain things. So certain Aishwarya starts creeping in. Some officialdom starts creeping in. Some distance starts creeping in. Some formality starts creeping in. And as a Vishnu, it's completely Aishwarya, right? He's not doing his loving pastimes and boy next door kind of a deal. So his officialdom is decreasing as you get closer to the Braj Vrindavan Ras. That's essentially what this slide means. Okay, maybe a couple of more questions. We have 3 more minutes before the session starts, so we can wrap it up quickly. Yes, Surendra ji and Sairam ji.
Radhe Radhe Surendra ji.
Radhe Radhe Nitin ji, thank you very much. Tere ras ka lage chaska jisko. Can I relate to this as a Premanand? And the second line is Vaikunt lage fika usko. Is that Brahmanand?
Yeah, so there raska laga chaska jisko, Vaikunt laga fika usko. That means I don't want to settle down for you as a king alone. Vaikunt is king. Brahmanand is even before that. We have come past Brahmanand now. We are talking all about Premanand. Within Premanand, Maharaj is saying, why settle for God as a king? Why not go deeper and consider him as your beloved, or maybe your master, or maybe as your friend, or maybe as your kid, because that will become deeper, 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 and even deeper. Brahmanand, we are not entered. In Brahmanand, none of this matters, because you are worshipping God as a formless, and you are bereft of this bliss, because God will not all of a sudden meet you as a kid or as a king or as a beloved, because you have never practiced it that way, right? In your meditation or otherwise. So Brahmanand, it's beyond Brahmanand at this point. We are past moksha. We are talking about the possibilities within Premanand now.
Skipping the Brahmanand level. We are skipping Brahmanand.
It's not like first you get to Brahmanand and then Premanand. It's just like some people worship God as in their deities in his personal form. So that path itself becomes different at that moment, because you are worshipping God in his personal form. But if you are worshipping God in his impersonal form as a light, then you go up to Brahmanand. That is essentially what I'm saying. It's not that you first have to reach Brahmanand, then Premanand. You might be progressing towards Brahmanand or Premanand. It's like 2 paths like this.
Why?
It's not like one after.
Why image?
Yeah, why image? Yeah. It's Brahmanand path, Premanand path. It's not like first Brahmanand, then Premanand. Nothing of that sort.
Great. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
No worries.
There is a comment
I
from
know
Rachna
that
also.
straight line probably confused some, but I'm glad you brought up this question. Yes, Sairam ji.
There is a comment from Rachna ji also. Thank you for all the beautiful.
Thank you, Rachna ji. Please, I would request everybody to fill out the feedback tracker. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take those during the session as well.
Radhe
Yes,
Radhe
Sairam ji, last one we can take real quick.
Okay. Radhe Radhe Nitin ji, thank you very much. Yes, slide deck was very, very in-depth. It was very helpful. I had one question in the next slide also. I did not understand this 0 to 100. Actually, the one after this, If you are already in Madhurya Bhav, then why would you have 0 to 100 and 50-50? Everything
It is
should be
possible.
100 to. Oh, okay.
Not necessary. Not necessary. You might be loving Krishna for your own sake completely, like Kubja did. They just wanted to marry Krishna because they thought they will get happiness from Krishna, their own happiness. They just fell in love with Krishna. That is also, God says, all right, I'm not going to limit you. Fine. You're still mine. And he married her, right? And then the Ranis, they would think, we will do things for your sake and our sake. So that proportion can vary there as well. Kubja or some of the, when you love Krishna, that can also vary. Are you loving Krishna for your sake only, for your pleasure only? Or 50-50 your pleasure and Krishna's pleasure, or only for Krishna's pleasure? So there is a possibility there as well.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, even in
Thank you.
material love, it's not possible. When we love somebody, it's only for our sake. Or we try to balance it out. So you can loosely connect with that.
There is one.
Thank you.
Okay. No worries. With that, we come to the end of today's session. I know the lecture has started there. So Radhe Radhe from my side, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday. We will have our second year celebration as well. And please do sign up for Jagat Gurutam Divas and stay safe and stay warm and Radhe Radhe and enjoy the lecture that is going to happen. Thank you from my side.